Hello everyone, this is Julia. Thank you so much for joining me on my craft room adventures. Today, I have a fun encouragement scene card to share with you using stamps and dies by Heffy Doodle. I started by using the DL Stitched Slimline Trio dies. I used the largest size, and I'm using the Cloudy Skies Stencil just to add some ink blending. The color I'm using is Salty Ocean Distress Oxide. And since I don't have a slimline cloud stencil just yet, I'm just using a regular stencil and just making sure not to ink blend the very last edge of the stencil, and then just lining it up, and that works just as well. Just adding a little bit of the salty ocean. I didn't want it to be too dark, but I really like the salty ocean for like a nice, happy and bright sky. Just alternating between the cloud edges. Also using different angles just to give my cloudy sky a bit of interest. I wasn't quite sure how far I needed to ink blend down, so I just went almost to the bottom. I knew I wanted to add some like grassy hills, but to be sure that I didn't have to go back in, I just ink blended close to the bottom. Then I'm also using some shimmer and just mixed it with water, adding some splatters to add shimmery splatters, and then I'm also mixing the water with a bit of salty ocean to also add some blue splatters to the background. Then I use the Slopey Joe's Hill dies. I don't have the Slimline Hill dies just yet, but those are on my wish list for sure. I'm using Twisted Citron, Mowed Lawn, and Rustic Wilderness to ink blend my hill. And I die cut 3 of those borders and I ink blended them all the same. Just adding a bit of darkness from the bottom so that there's a nice bright edge at the top. Then I'm also using some Mowed Lawn and Rustic Wilderness splatter, just diluted with some water for added interest on my grassy hills. For my sentiment, I'm using the Pebble Sentiment stamp set. And this is a brand new stamp set, so I didn't actually prep the stamp, so I stamped it a few times. But after that, it stamped perfectly. The Pebble Sentiment actually has an add-on die set that has the coordinating die to cut out the sentiments, but also has like a scalloped edge and a stitched edge, which is just super pretty. But for this one, I'm just using the regular coordinating die for it. Here I'm just using the Heffy Doodle mini die cut machine to cut out my sentiment. And I stamped all of my images from Pandatastic Painters and Homeschool Hero. The Homeschool Hero is just the 2 stars at the very right edge, and the rest is from Pandatastic Painters. And I'm coloring them in using Copic markers. I wanted my pandas to be more gray than black, just to keep the colors nice and light. So I went in with N5, then N3, now blending that out with N1, and finally going in with N0. Then just going in with the same colors again, just for a little more dimension, deepening up the shadows. Then again, blending that out with N0 because I didn't want the entire color to just get a lot darker. Then for my cheeks, I'm using R81, just for a nice bright pink, blending that out with V000. And then for the white part, I'm just using N1 and N0 and the colorless blender just to add a bit of shading there. For my purple combination, I'm using BV01 as my darkest shade, then blending that out with BV00, BV000, and then BV000. I wanted my colors to be more like pastel colored, so I didn't go in very dark. I just added a second layer of the same colors just for a bit more shading. And then I'm adding some teal shades, which are BG13, BG11, Then BG10, going back in with the darkest shade to the BG13, again with BG11, and then blending that out with BG10. Then I wanted to create a little scene on my canvas, so I went in with G12, then YG quadruple 0, and a Copic multiliner to create hills on my canvas. And for my clouds, I'm using B02. And looking back, I would have drawn the clouds in a bit differently, but this was my first attempt at doing this, and I thought it turned out fine. Then blending that out with B triple 0. Just softening up the cloud edges, then B quadruple 0. Again with the B double 0. Triple 0. Just to fade out the pretty dark clouds that I drew in. And then the B quadruple 0. I wanted a light or fairly light pink heart, so I'm going in with R85, R83, R81, and then V triple 0. For my brown shades on my card, I wanted to use like a cool brown shade, so I'm going in with E40 markers. My darkest shade is E44, so not a very dark marker at all, because I wanted, like I said, to keep the colors fairly light on the entire card. Then going in with E43 to blend that out. Then I realized I needed a bit more definition, so I'm going in with E47, blending that out with E43. Then E42 for the bristles of the brush. That's why I made the brushes a little bit darker so that the bristles would stand out. And then blending that out with E40. Then I'm going in with yellow for my stars. I'm starting with a thin line of YR23, and then I'm blending that out with Y02, Y00, and Y000. And the rest of the images I colored off camera with the same color combinations that I already mentioned. I added the hill panels with tape runner and liquid glue. Liquid glue I'm using is the Heffy Doodle Glue Bird. Just making sure to create some nice dimension with the hills. Then I'm adding my elements to my cute little critters. So 2 of the pandas get the little encouragement stars, and the creative genius gets the brush and the little paint palette. Then I'm adding my background images first, so the easel and like the paint bucket, brushes, and paints. I roughly placed the sentiment just to get the spacing right. Then I added foam squares to the back of my pandas and placed them in my scene. I added this panda a little bit lower so that I would have room for my sentiment. And then just adding my final images. Off camera I added some white gel pen details, and now I'm adding some Nuvo Aqua Shimmer Pen in glitter gloss for some extra shine. On all of the paint, like the brushes, the paint cans, I added Stardust Stickles, and I added Nuvo Glossy Accents, no, Crystal Glaze it's called, on the stars for some shine and dimension. There you can see the entire scene, the pretty shine from the background, the stickles, and the shiny stars. I had so much fun playing with these stamps and dies, which are from the new release. I will be sure to list everything in the video description so that you can go check it out. Thank you so very much for joining me today. I will see you again soon. Until then, have a wonderful day. Bye!